Welcome back to Hollow Bear Games. The team recently took part in the Godot Wild Jam number 69, which took place over 9 days. This month, the jam's theme was Void. For this jam, we wanted to put into practice our learnings from our most recent Ludum Dare entry, where we received a lot of feedback pointing to the gameplay being unintuitive for players. With that in mind, we set a goal of making an instantly understandable experience that allowed players to quickly jump in and have fun from the first moment of gameplay without an extensive tutorial needed. To accomplish this goal, we decided to take quite a literal interpretation of the theme and opted to create an arcade-style game where the player takes the role of said void, seeking to consume all in its path. We began with a quick prototype that allowed constrained growth of the void within a certain defined area. The growth would prefer to fill gaps in the void itself, which would allow it to appear as though it's a single unified mass. The core gameplay would consist of consuming enemies in order for the void to gain enough power to grow larger and larger. Consuming the enemies would increase your score, and the gameplay loop continue until the void's health reaches 0 and the humans manage to defeat it. With the void now able to grow, we added some tentacles that reach out from the void in order to consume the enemies, providing a nice thematic feedback to the attack. Consuming enemies would also gradually cause the screen to zoom out further and further, which in turn allows more and more enemies to spawn into the world and attack you. This increase in the number of enemies on screen that you needed to defeat would essentially act as the game's difficulty curve. To complement this new addition, we also added some unsuspecting civilians to the world who are standing around idly whenever the game starts. These civilians are easy pickings and perform the role of a quick, intuitive tutorial that highlights the core gameplay loop before you actually begin getting attacked. Killing all of these unfortunate civilians, of course, causes the army to send in their best and brightest, so we also added some tanks, helicopters, and jets that act as antagonistic enemies. Now that we had a solid core gameplay foundation in place, we turned our attention to adding additional features as well as improving the game's art style. Given the arcade nature of the game, we decided to include a leaderboard system so the players could compete with one another in order to gain the highest spot. During playtesting, several testers highlighted that with the current colour scheme, it was difficult to read enemies against the background during high intensity moments of gameplay. Therefore, we also switched the artwork to a palette with a better colour contrast to make it easier for players to identify the enemies even during these really hectic moments. We also added some proper art assets for the background and the various enemies, including animations for moving, aiming, and shooting for each of them. We finished up the jam by adding some particle effects to both the void and the impacts whenever enemies are consumed by it, in order to sell the destructive nature of the void's attacks. The final piece of the puzzle remaining was to add a special attack, in order to help the player in those moments where they were about to be overwhelmed by the enemies. Overall, the jam went really well, even if we didn't get to add everything we wanted to the game. We had plans to add several more enemy types, including jetpack soldiers, men in black style special operations units, and ships at the edge of the city as the screen zoomed out. However, as is the nature of game jams, time wasn't exactly on our side in this particular case. Despite this, we feel we achieved the goal that we originally set out to, and the reception of the game has been very positive, with all players highlighting its intuitive, fun, and addictive arcade style gameplay. We ended up placing in the top 30% of all submissions to the game jam, which is something we're very pleased with, especially compared to our previous entry's submission. I'd just like to say thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you like and subscribe. If you'd like to come and say hello to us or ask any questions, then feel free to join us in our Discord. The link for it is in the description. See you all next time.